everyone. Welcome to the Human Resolve podcast. I am with my guest here, Jason Gelios. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi. Well, first off, thank you for having me. On most days, I am Jason Gelios. I'm a top producing realtor out of Southeast Michigan. I'm the author of the book, Think Like a Realtor. I have a weekly web show, among other videos, but it's called the AskJasonGelios Show, where I answer questions about real estate and things like that. And I share tips for homeowners. And I'm also an expert media contributor of real estate expertise. And probably the past 6 months, I've been diving into life tips, personal things that I've shared. That I've gone through to help me stay strong, to go after my goals. And that's really been such a positive thing that I've been doing. I love it. So I'm really excited to be here on your show because of the content that you provide and how you are putting hope into the world, which is what we need more of. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to first thank you for contributing to my interview series, Rising Through Resilience, How to Be Resilient During Turbulent Times. So right off the bat, what is resilience to you?
To me, it's kind of like how a martial artist performs their craft, where you can be tough, right? Or maybe you're not that tough, but when you get hit, you get back up. And to me, that's what being resilient is not staying down for the count when life hits you. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be things that we feel set us back. But if we recover faster from that thing that seemed to debilitate us for a while, whether it's a day or a week or a year, as long as we get back to it, we're okay. Now, obviously, sooner the better. But to me, resilience is more of a mental thought of, okay, I'm going to move forward no matter what. And I'm going to stick to my guns and do what I do.
In the article, you mentioned this idea of eye on the prize.
Yes.
Just detail maybe sort of things in your life where you've really focused on that prize.
Yes. Well, so I am human. I have days where I forget that phrase for about a minute, but again, life happens to us, and things will try to take us away from what we're going after. It could be a disagreement with a friend or family member, or something that just kind of irked us. But if we keep our eye on the prize and what we're really going after, I think that's important. For me, daily action is crucial. I have to take steps to move my business forward, even personally, our family forward in their endeavors and what they want to accomplish. And if we don't keep our eye on the prize, if we allow ourselves to be distracted and we're not focused on our overall goal or what we have to do for the day, right? Let's just talk about, the things that we have to do throughout the day. For me, being in sales, I have to have positivity, and I have to go out and be the beacon to others. And if I allow something to distract me from that, to pull that from those actions, then my business suffers. And so keeping our eye on the prize is, okay, what do I have to accomplish? It doesn't matter if somebody, pissed me off in this area or that area. It's just, we have to keep our eye on the prize and just keep going forward. I can't think of who said it, but it was so great, where it said, it was a meme, and it said, well, I guess it wasn't a meme, but it was something online that said, did you have a bad day, or did you just have a bad 5 minutes? Now, I'm human. There have been days where I've had to apply more resilience, than other days. But as long as we keep our eye on the prize of what we're trying to actually accomplish, we won't let things knock us down and keep us down.
In the article, you mentioned sort of the movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, with Christopher Gardner.
Yes.
How has he demonstrated both resilience, and then also there's sort of this haze when it comes to courage, that courage somewhat
Yes.
lends itself to resilience.
Yes.
How do they work for you?
He is such a perfect example. I've actually mentioned him in multiple interviews because he is probably, well, he is the best example to me of somebody who has applied his resilience as well as his courage. To me, resilience is more mental, but it powers your courage to move you along physically. Christopher Gardner, in his story of going through everything, I mean, he was hit from all angles, right? His girlfriend wasn't feeling his new goal. Mentally, he was going through so much. He had a son that he has a son that he has to raise, and at that time he was pretty much homeless in his story. And his courage, or rather his resilience, sparked his courage to keep him physically going forward. I mean, he was hit mentally, physically. He had to work through so many obstacles. And ever since I was, I guess, exposed to his story, it just resonates with me. I mean, I've watched the movie countless times because he's a great example of both. So you have your resilience that you build up, because I don't feel anyone's born with that. But then that powers your courage to keep you physically moving and going after what you really want.
In the piece, you also mentioned about cultivating raving fans and going from
Yes.
nursing to being a realtor. Can you explain
Yes.
a little bit more of your backstory?
Yeah. Well, so I had met my now wife. I was in my early 20s, and she was actually pursuing a bachelor's degree in nursing, which she accomplished, and she's actually a successful nurse. But I was a hard laborer. I was going job to job. I was putting in, sweat. I wouldn't say sweat equity because I really wasn't going anywhere.
Okay.
I, and I always worked hard at things, but I watched her as she was studying, and setting goals for herself, and that got me thinking. You know what? I work hard. I never had an issue with work ethic or showing up, but can I change my life and do bigger things?
Yeah.
Can I change my mindset? Can I, maybe level up and do something better in my own life? And so she really, really inspired me to make some changes. And so somebody in my family, I believe it was my cousin, said, "You should try sales." The old, "Oh, you're outgoing, so you should try sales." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I don't really want to sell stuff." But then I learned after, countless hours of research and figuring out what real sales was, is it's not about trying to sell to people and, change their mind. It's about going out and finding problems and offering solutions. So I got into professional sales. I started as a mortgage rep, 100% commission, which meant they just said, "Sure, you have a pulse. Let's get you started." Um, and then I learned that self-education is key. So I studied anything I could about sales and communication, things like that. And then the recession hit for housing. I think that was 2008. And I was typecast as a loan officer, even though people were getting let go and the industry was tanking. People were like, "Well, maybe you should stay in lending." And I'm like, "Well, no, I need to prove myself and, and show that I can do sales in general, not just sell mortgages." So I did. I got into general sales and found success there. And I eventually ended up on the licensed realtor side, which is a lot more fun for me. I'm in the trenches, so to speak. I get to see the product. I get to go through the product, and I haven't stopped ever since. So um, that was a huge change for me too, because prior to getting my license, I was with a major company. I was number one on the board for sales. I beat the top guy. They said it was impossible because he had been on that spot for
Wow.
so long, and I did it. And then there was a slight disagreement with management, and commissions paid out. And long story short, it just didn't work out. But I remember driving home like, wow, like I was number one on the sales board, and yet I was let go. And that really made me think, okay, I need to level up even higher and really own my future, not just be proactive. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that do great with corporations and sales and things like that. But for me, I was like, I need to just protect my future more. I wanted to have more control over my opportunity. And that's what sparked becoming a realtor.
I also love it that you mention in the piece about one of your core values is to provide value to others without expectation. Like, how beautiful is that? That's a great sentiment. Was that early on in your career, or is that something that sort of formed?
Um, it was early on in my career. Actually, I think I've always had that trait. I learned that as a young kid, where I'll never forget when I was a kid, where I wanted a Nintendo Game Boy. And, I asked my parents for it. I said, and they were like, well, it's not your birthday and it's not Christmas. So I don't know, I don't know about that. And so I went out when we had snowstorms and I just shoveled the driveway. I didn't ask for money. I just went to my neighbors and I shoveled the driveway. I grabbed my shovel. It was terrible out, right? It was cold, freezing, and I shoveled it. And they would see me out there and they would throw me, $10 bill, $20 bill, depending. The next time it snowed, I went back out and I was able to get that Game Boy. And
Wow.
yeah, and I'll never forget, it was $89.95 without tax. But I think I've always had. Now it went into overdrive because when I became a realtor, I said, okay, there's a lot of real estate agents out there, and how can I stand out? How can I be different? I don't want to do the same things and follow the same formulas that every other agent does. And so my thought was, wow, I've always loved video, although I was always behind the scenes. Back in high school, I was in a film class and I was behind the scenes. I was camera, I was control room in high school. So I had to learn how to be great in front of the camera. And I think I'm probably 50% of the way there. I watch my own videos because I have to edit, most of them I edit myself. And I'm like, wow, okay. I said that, I did that. Okay, but I don't care because I think people want value. They don't want to, part of being tough and going forward is knowing that people don't think the way we think. People don't think the way I think. Exactly. So I may be critical of how I am on video or how I sound on audio, but somebody else is like, okay, what's the information? They want the information. They don't care that, I don't know, maybe, your hair is not perfect, or, which I know you don't have that problem.
I don't have that problem, not at all.
Which is good, actually, that's easier. But no, so just, I go out and I push value, and I do believe that karma is a real thing.
Yeah.
And if you have that mentality that I want to help others, then it just comes back to you. It really does. It really does, through the grand universe. So.
Yeah. Well, all of us has faced our own challenges, and I know you spoke to a little bit about your childhood and your speech impediment.
Yes.
What has that experience taught you?
It's taught me that people can be cruel. That was a very hard time. I mean, I had a great childhood, great parents, all that stuff, but when it came to school, it drove me nuts. And that was something that I had to overcome and actually get through. So it also taught me that I need to just be myself and who I am, because this is who I am. I never allowed other kids to define me. I think we have to know who we are. I was who I was. I liked what I liked. I had a small group of friends at the time. And yes, I also stood out in school because back then, right, in the 90s, I was one of 3 people that were over 6 foot. I mean, people were not tall back then.
No,
So I stood out. And then with the speech impediment and everything, it's just like, oh my Lord, I stood up like a sore thumb. But it also taught me how to be strong and not take things personal. Because for a while, especially when I started middle school is where it really got tricky. Um, but it taught me that, okay, I'm not, people must be miserable if they have to attack others. They must have something going on in their house or something in their life or whatever, or they're not well liked, or they're not happy with themselves to try to take down someone else. And so I allowed that to give me the philosophy of ignore the noise. Just this is me. And if you don't like me, okay. If you're gonna make fun of me for that, okay, that's fine. You do you. I'm gonna do me. I'm not gonna take it personal. Even to this day, being in sales, there's a lot of rejection in sales. It doesn't matter what you do, and you just have to think, okay, well, I have something to offer. Okay, I know I'm great at what I do. I just got to be in front of people that respect that.
Yeah, you also spoke to this idea of being dealt a bad hand. I mean, as you know, I'm a cancer survivor, but I
Yes.
loved how you said about reframing that and leading with example rather than leading with the pain.
Yes. Yeah, right now people, I mean, especially now with the pandemic and things like that, other things, I mean, name an area and we're seeing issues in it. But people want to follow people who are great examples. People want hope. They don't want to hear the same negative stuff. Um, they don't want to, well, they may ingest, negative things, but they really don't want. I mean, most people want to see goodness, and so we have to provide and be great examples. Tony Robbins is doing this in his content, where he is offering tips and being the beacon of hope for people, and many people follow him because of that. Because he's not sharing negative stuff. He's saying, hey, how can we get through this stuff? Um, so I love his content as well. Your content as well. People who have gone through things that I couldn't even imagine and have survived. That's amazing. Um, so it's important for people to seek out people who are great examples, not negative content that is put out there. I mean, we don't need updates on every single thing every day. I feel that everybody in their own way should be a beacon of hope to other people, whether it's on a podcast or it's just if you go to the store and you say hi to the greeter. I mean, it's simple stuff. That stuff goes a long way. So we have to be a great example, and none of us are perfect. We're going to have days where we're like, oh my gosh, why did I get out of bed? But if we still try to be a great example to others, then I mean, to me, that's a winning formula.
So, what are your 5 steps to becoming more resilient?
Excellent. Well, the first one is knowing what our why is. Um, this really is no secret. There's a lot of coaches that share this, but when I learned about, hey, what is my why? All right, it can't just be about I want to make X amount of money, because that's only going to last so long. You have to have purpose, and you have to know what's my why. My why for me is family and being better than I was yesterday, last week, last year. And so that's my why. And so there's not much in the world that can affect me to where I'll get derailed, because I know, okay, that, I have a purpose. I need to move forward. I need to keep my eye on the prize. And when I know my why, I'm so strong. So people have to figure out, why do I do what I do? Why do I do the work that I do? Why do I run the charity that I run? Why do I do a podcast? Why? That will actually keep you tough, and you'll bounce back faster from other things. Second thing would be stepping out of your comfort zone. This was huge for me, because when I was thinking about getting into sales, I was like, okay, I don't know if I can communicate. I don't know if I can talk fast, and all these things. Can I present to people? Because I did have a speech impediment, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can do all this, but I'm like, I just threw myself in it, And I remember starting off cold calling people out of a phone book when you were allowed to do that. And I was nervous and sweating, and I was just, stammering. I mean, oh my gosh, these people probably thought, who is this guy, calling me? And it was terrible. Of course, I learned more effective ways to sell, but it took years, But when you step out of your comfort zone and you realize that, wow, you know what, I was afraid for that, then it takes away the fear, and you make it fun.
Yeah.
You're not falling victim to that false evidence appearing real. So, another one is overthinking. We got to stop overthinking. You can have person A and person B, and person A and B both have a great idea, but person A is overthinking, right? They're like, ready, aim, and then person B is like, okay, ready, aim, fire, and they get further than person A. So we have to stop overthinking and just do it. Rule out things and then say, okay, I'm just gonna try it, because we don't want to have mental paralysis where we're like thinking about something for so long and then we miss our opportunity. So another one, I think it's our fourth one, is just take a step back and breathe.
That's often easiest but the hardest to do.
It is, and I'm working on all of these, but this one I'm working on the most because I do get caught up in the day, and I'm like, I'm just caught up, and I'm like, wait a minute, I need to actually just take a step back and breathe. What's important? Okay, what do I have to do to get through this tough period? I mean, when COVID hit, there was so many things going on. I mean, it was just like the whole world became negative, at least from my perception, perspective. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't want to fall into that trap. So, okay, take a step back, breathe, right? Which, by the way, breathing has so many health benefits. It's right up there with water. And it's like, okay, what do I need to do? Like for me, I had to tweak my business a little bit because, people weren't doing meetings. I had to adapt to video more, had to learn Zoom and other various streaming platforms, and had to work through that. So really just taking a step back and breathing and then deciding, okay, what do I need to do to get through the tough period? And then the last one is my favorite, is finding laughter. I love comedy. The Rodney Dangerfields.
You're old school, Rodney Dangerfield.
I'm old school. Yes. These days it's Kevin Hart, things like that. Actually, I'm a huge fan of 80s comedy movies.
Yeah.
So if I'm having a day and I realize and I remind myself that, hey, I need to laugh and change my mindset because I'm kind of going down a path where I'm complaining a lot. I'll play a short YouTube clip like, a scene from an 80s movie or where, matter of fact, I have a buddy where we will occasionally send comedy clips and funny things. And I'm just like, LOL, and it's a quick thing, but I end up laughing out loud because it's just so funny. And so I think if we find laughter, it can really change how we feel that day. If we're having a bad day, put something funny on, or put on something that just changes your mindset. For me, it's funny, it's comedy, it's quick clips. For others, it might be, classical music in the background or, fast rock music. I don't know what it is, but for me, it's comedy, and it really helps me think, okay, you know what? I'll be fine, and I can get back to what I was doing. And laughter can definitely help people get through tough times. That's for sure. It's huge.
Well, of all the ones you mentioned, they just seemed like they're not going to, it takes attention and intention, but it doesn't take a lot of time to do. So it seems very simple and approachable, which is great.
It is. I'm not a fan of complex tactics. I like simple. Like, okay, so going back to knowing our why, this could be something as simple as having your goals in front of you and having maybe a personal mission statement. I keep my annual goals, my big goals, with pictures on a PDF on my phone, and I'll look at it. If I'm early for an appointment, or I have 2 minutes to kill, or if I'm in line at a store, I'll actually pull it up and be like, oh, that's right, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Ah.
That's something so simple. You can literally, you can put all that into a Word document and create a PDF and put it in your phone, through Dropbox or files if you have iPhone. But keeping this in front of you is like, okay, I know my why. And stepping out of your comfort zone, that's just take the step. Yeah. Get over self-doubt, get over overthinking and all that stuff. Just take the step. Do it. It's just something so simple.
In the piece, I also asked about if you could create a movement, what would that be? And yours was just so beautifully stated, just about helping others. Can you expound on that? Yes.
Well, I'm a huge fan of pay it forward. That to me, that is such a powerful thing. Now I'm gonna share with you a brief story that I'm not so proud of, but it did remind me of the pay it forward movement, and that was I was in a long line for coffee, which sounds smug. But I was on the road and I'm like, I need a coffee. Apparently I didn't have enough that day. Okay, so I'm in line for coffee and there was somebody in front of me who had a loud exhaust. It just sounded horrible. And I didn't say anything, didn't do anything, but I was thinking negatively, like, oh my gosh, get your car fixed, right? Yeah. Although I'm not one to talk, there are things that I could probably do better. But in my head, I'm just like, okay, I'm complaining in my head. And I don't know why, that I just allowed myself to slip into that. So we move forward, okay. And I go to give payment to the barista, and she's like, you're all set. And I'm like, what? So yeah, the car in front of you paid for you. And I'm like, wow. First off, I'm like, man, I should have got a bigger size coffee. No, I'm kidding. No, but I was like, wow. And it was a reminder, like, hey, don't complain. Yeah. Don't allow yourself to slip into that. This person paid for my coffee. It was crazy. So what did I do? Obviously, I paid for the person behind me. Yeah. And I don't know how far that went, but I'm like, well, okay, I'm not gonna just leave. I'm gonna pay for the person behind me. Yeah. It could be as simple as, like, I have an elderly neighbor who can't shovel their snow, and they have grandkids. But we were talking. It was our first year in our house, and I just plowed their driveway and their walkway. I just did it. Wow. Didn't ask. I just did it, and that he was, he came over, I don't know, the day after, I think, and was like, thank you so much. I try to get the grandkids over, but take some time. And I'm like, I'm right here. Exactly. I don't mind. You can change the course of someone's day by paying it forward. Yeah. Even if you're smiling at them, like, how are you? It can be so simple. So I would love to see a movement. I'd love to see that more. And I think we are. I don't know if you agree, but I think we are seeing a little bit more of it. I think it's trickling in. Yeah. But yeah, there's so many ways to pay it forward. That would be my number one. Excellent. Well, now I want to transition into our little brainstorming section. So what is it in the world that is a pain point for you? And maybe we could generate some ideas in and around how to make that less painful. In consideration. In consideration. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's a word. The lack of consideration for others. I struggle with that. That drives me nuts. People who are inconsiderate of others. And to know what I mean, you can go into probably any grocery store and you'll see some of the rudest people, not the staff, but people shopping. I could not believe how many times I got cut off with shopping carts. No, excuse me, no, not, I mean, just so I think a lack of consideration for others is it's a pain point for me. There are times where you may have a client who, or customer, or whatever you do, coworker who you're trying to do your best for them, and they don't see it, or they don't want to see it, and they treat you accordingly. I think there needs to be more consideration for others.
Yeah, I definitely found that to be true as well. I think for me, a good friend mentioned recently how someone said something really nasty to them on social
Yeah,
media, like really offensive and nasty. And instead of retaliating, she just asked, "Can I ask you a question? Why did you say that?"
yeah,
And I struggle with this about being not transparent with people that I know, because I am, but being transparent with people I don't know. I feel like
right,
I have to be someone else. So I'm thinking
right,
maybe there's something in there, perhaps, where we could speak up, but not speak up in a way that would offend others, but speak up in a more curious way. Just
right.
a thought.
Yeah, and that's an area that I'm actually working on because I come from a family of directness.
Ah,
There's no gray area. I don't, I'm not a rude guy, but I'm direct. Um, I'll be like, I don't know, somebody will say, oh well, this happened to me, and I'm like, well, you probably shouldn't have done this, or you shouldn't have said that. So to where I'm like, maybe I can tone that down a little bit. um, but I think we have to be who we are.
yeah.
Um, Unless it's something bad for us or bad for others. I think we have to be, just who we are. Um, Unless it hurts somebody else, of course, then by all means, don't do that. Um, I don't. I don't go into the world and try to be someone that I'm not. I'm really honest with myself and with others. And this is me. I provide a lot of good. Sometimes people don't want to hear advice. Um, you know, Sometimes they don't want to know your opinion. So it's like okay, but yeah, I do think that I think we just got to be ourselves, and I think too that will also make you more resilient and more tough. Is you're like I know that I'm doing something right, and I'm not going to let anyone else sway me from that. And we should be afraid of being ourselves as well. You know, I think right now there's a lot of division because people are attacking others for how they think on both sides, and it's like, well, we need to respect people's opinions. People think a certain way, and that's okay because I feel like a lot of times we go out in the world and we think, okay, these, other people think the way I think. And that's not the case. You know,
Yeah.
Not everybody sees the world as I see it,
Yes.
and that's okay. So,
That's a great point. I think it's a baby steps, as they say, in the right direction.
everything is, all these things that I mentioned about, changing your life and things like that, all that is baby steps. I think, um, there's a reason why at the beginning of the year, right, in January, the fitness arenas and the gyms are packed, and then come late February, the parking lot's empty. It's because they try to take big steps from the get-go instead of saying, okay, maybe I'll run a mile each week, then I'll run 2 the next month, and then build it up slowly, take those baby steps. Instead, we dive into it, and then when we don't see fast results, we lose. We're like, I don't want to do that anymore. So
So, Jason, where can my audience find more about you and your genius
oh,
online?
well, my main real estate hub is it's allabouttherealestate.com. I also have another website. It's JasonGelios.com. I post more things on social media as well. All those links are on my website. It's allabouttherealestate.com. That's where I share the articles that I've been in and things like that. So definitely invite people to follow me on social media as well. And I'd love anyone's feedback listening. So
Okay. Well, this was a lovely chat, Jason. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
thanks for having me.
Sure.